Hey guys, it's Nathan from History Bomb. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about food and the water during the 1960s and 50s. The food and water that was meant to help keep people alive during the nuclear apocalypse. So we're going to be talking about both what people were eating like in their own homes, what they were keeping, and also in actual fallout shelters that you'd see in public places. So I have three examples with me today of the storage containers where you would have found your food kept. But before we get into those, these are all the storage containers I have today. They're all from like public shelters, but I'm going to talk a little bit about what you would see in private homes. So during that time, citizens were encouraged to keep supplies in their own houses. A lot of times that would consist of water and non-perishables. The non-perishable food could have been things that they'd grown in the garden, so like corn and beans and squash, or if you didn't have a garden or a green thumb, you could have also found non-perishable goods at the grocery store, rice, graham crackers, canned goods, things like that. As far as water, in the early days of civil defense, typically you'd find water kept in glass jars. A little later on, when you had plastic containers, you would have found water kept in plastic containers, like I said. But there was actually a warning in the 1960s that the plastic container could change the taste, although civil defense officials promised everybody the water's still safe to drink, even though it might taste a little funny. I don't know about how true that is, but I imagine the water was relatively okay to drink. Now, moving on to what you'd see in a public shelter. So the food I talked about before, you'd find in like basements and people's personal shelters, but in public shelters, I have a few different water and food storage things with me today. Starting off, we have these small cans of purified drinking water. They are 10-ounce cans. If you look along the top here, there is no tab or anything like that. This can, it's still sealed. But like I said, because there's no tab, you'd have to open it up with a knife or can opener or something similar. And I'm gonna shake it, and if you listen, it's kind of got this weird like glubby sound, and if you shake it, it feels like there's a solid mass in there. There is not. It is actually an air pocket. This thing is vacuum tight. Because of that, and I've never opened up one of these myself, but because of that seal, this water should still be safe to drink. If you dump it out, it's still crystal clear. Now, moving up to the larger scale of water storage, I have this big, what I think, 17 and a half? Yep, 17 and a half gallon drum. Now, this steel barrel here would have a lid on top. You wouldn't have shipped the water in this. This is sent empty, and then once it arrives on location, it would be filled up. There'd be a plastic bag that went inside, and you'd fill out that plastic bag, and then you'd use like a rubber tube to distribute the water. These here, like I said, 17 and a half gallons, so for a larger bunker, you probably would have had a few of these. This one here I got at an antique store up in Pennsylvania. It was actually being used as a trash can. I have another one, which a friend of mine purchased from me, I believe also from an antique store in Pennsylvania. I have encountered two others. One was also in an antique store in Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh. And the fourth one I saw, it was outside a pet store being used as a trash can. So it was not for sale. It had been rained on, it had been kept outside, it was pretty rusted up. It was not in the best shape. But that's the only one I've seen outside of the Pennsylvania-Pittsburgh area. I'm guessing that the reason I've encountered so many around Pittsburgh is because it was a major city. There was a lot of steel production, so it would have been a good target for a nuclear strike. So there would have been a lot of bunkers and a lot of these storage containers around. There's actually still an address label on the far side of this, a little paper slip that says the building where it was shipped to. So like I said, it probably would have been a larger bunker in the city, probably would have had a few of these containers. Now, my favorite detail about these is printed along the bottom here. It says to reuse as commode. So once the water was emptied out of this actually became the bunker's toilet. So remember that plastic bag I mentioned earlier that the water was kept in? You would cut along the top of it and you'd fit this over the top like a trash bag. Now in a separate kit, a sanitation kit, there would be a toilet seat as well as things like toilet paper, sanitary napkins, things like that. But that toilet seat would fit right on top here, and you would use the bathroom. It would drop down into the bag, And once that bag was filled up, oh, there's also a powder you could put in, a chemical agent, which was presumably for decomposition and smell. But once the bag's filled up, it would be wired shut. You'd put the solid lid back on there, and you really had to hope that was a nice tight seal, because that barrel would have to stay in the bunker with you until you could go out. And in some cases, you were advised to stay in the bunker for up to 2 weeks at a time. Now in private homes, a lot of times they were just advised to have trash bags and a shovel. But like I said, this was for a larger city or public bunker. So this would have been your toilet. So moving on to food storage, the last thing I have to show you today is this tin here of survival biscuits. I actually didn't know I had this, so I just opened up my cabinet the other day and found it in there. I'd forgotten I had one. These, like I said, are biscuits. You also sometimes find boxes that are about the same size that are labeled as survival crackers. And there's a third option, which you would find is labeled as hard candy. And it's, I believe, pink and yellow hard candy. It's a mixture. It's somewhat different box, but around the same size. This one here is labeled. A lot of the ingredients here are the same ingredients that are used in crackers today. And it is dated, packaging date of 1962. So even though this is packaged in 1962, it should still be, like the water, should still be safe to eat these. Probably not the tastiest things, but of course none of the food that they would have had. I'm guessing that hard candy, the crackers, the biscuits, none of that's going to be the tastiest thing in the world. It's just to get you through the day. Because of that, a lot of these private bunkers were actually encouraged to stockpile traditional food. So they would have canned goods from the grocery store, non-perishables like I mentioned, like the same things you'd find in a private home. A lot of public shelters and bunkers were encouraged to incorporate those items into their bunker's diet. My other favorite little detail here, something I think the last thing I'll show you today, which is kind of interesting, is down here you see a label that says United Biscuit Company of America. Today, that company is still around, but it is better known as Keebler, the company that makes those little chocolate elf cookies. So that same company that makes those cookies and that we see the commercials for today, that same company was producing these survival crackers to help get America through the nuclear apocalypse. All right, guys, I think that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Subscribe, like the video if you liked it. And check out our other videos here at History Bomb. Thanks, and have a good day.